So everybody's playing. Hey, Jose.
Okay. Hey, this is homegrown. What are you playing? Candy Crush?
No.
His wife's checking up.
We're not doing any of that.
I'm at work, honey.
Staying up to speed. My wife would tell me, "Get off my phone. Get off your phone." And it's like, your phone is my phone.
Wow. Oh, I mean,
She pays the bill though.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
She really does.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Thank you for
She
coming
knows we're
2
here
days in a row.
too. She knows I'm here.
She
All
does?
right, well,
you had to
yeah.
get permission. Did you have to sign a slip or no?
No, I share my location. We're living in 2020.
I don't think I
What?
threw any
What?
F-bombs, did I?
No,
you're
just
good.
Yesterday on the first.
well, you were
Yeah.
saving them for maybe this episode.
Jose drove out here 2 days in a row.
You know
So-
how it is. I had so much fun the first time.
I'll try to keep it clean because I know your kids will be watching.
It's
Oh,
okay.
that's right.
They know the curses. They're just not allowed to repeat it. I'd be sitting here and lied to you if I told you we didn't.
Yeah, there you go.
I tell them all the time, use it in context.
All right,
please.
let's do it. Let's do a countdown and
Go
get
on.
right to
Shoot.
it because
Go ahead.
I could feel the energy 2 days in a row. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back, friends. Welcome back to the next derivation of the Jersey Alchemist. I'm your host, Dr. John Gerard Galucci.
And I'm Philip D'Angelo.
And here again, Jose Sotomayor.
Sotomayor.
You like that?
Wow.
Wait, do I have to?
I've had people
do I-
ask me to repeat that. You guys are not the
that was
first.
Do I have to drop the octaves? Do I have to say Jose Sotomayor?
No, you know, I found it. It's interesting. And whenever I go to the hospital, it seems to be that all the literally nothing, no racial stuff intended, but literally the Asians and the Filipinos pronounce my name perfectly.
Really?
Perfectly.
Interesting.
Well, this is a big.
I guess it's
Spanish
just an
influence.
accent thing, you know. Like you said, a Spanish influence
Look at
in
all
it.
of the Filipinos have Spanish names.
But you
They
know,
do.
I'm impressed. I mean, I'm surprised. I remember my when I was graduating with my bachelor's, it was my first degree that I was accepting on the commencement day, and my mom was like, "I didn't hear them call your name. I didn't take a picture." I'm like, "What?" Yeah. And I said, I know why. The guys pronounced it. That's what it sounded like.
Oh
Yeah.
no.
And I knew it was me because when you have commencement, they have numbers in the names in alphabetical
yeah.
order. So I knew the names they were calling. So I'm texting my brother like, "Yo, make sure you guys take pictures. I'm next." Okay. So like they call my
Where were you?
name.
We missed.
I'm like, and I looked at the guy pronouncing my name. I'm like, really? Do you know my mom probably didn't know I was coming up here?
Oh wow.
So it's funny because that a few years later, 2 years later, I was accepting 2 master's degrees.
Don't brag, Jose.
No, I'm not bragging. I don't really. I feel like throwing up when I think about the times. But I was
Your
accepting
masters
the.
times 2.
Yeah,
What are they in?
I have a
man,
master's.
tell the
I have a
world.
master's in bilingual bicultural education, which I did because I wanted my ESL and bilingual certification. So I completed that, and then I just did what almost every other teacher probably would do if they have the time and the resource. Is I got my principal's license, and in the process of getting my
Excuse
principal's
us.
license, in the process of doing that, I
His new tag name
I
is the
get-
principal.
no, because
Was that
no.
the principal?
I don't have very good experience yet as a leader, at least that I've acquired. And I'm being honest with you guys. I did a 6-month stint not too far from here in Franklin Township. But it didn't go as well as I thought it would. I love the kids and the staff I worked with, but I'll leave it at
What are
that.
the responsibilities of a principal? I mean, think of all the personalities you have to deal with, for not only the students, but the teachers as well. I mean, there's a lot of people.
You know,
underneath,
I'll be
your
honest with you.
auspices.
That was one of the easiest parts of that job for
Really?
me in those 6 months. The challenge was breaking, and I hate to get into this, but breaking the political norms that existed in that town. In that town only.
Maybe it's in the educational world.
It was unreal, and that's what made one of the reasons that I had to step back. It was driving me crazy. It was driving me crazy.
I mean, where did the fight come from? Was it higher up? Like
To be honest, it was somewhere between the higher up and the administration at the school physically. I thought that there were many. There were good ideas, but there was no love, true love for what you were doing. And I'm not going to throw any name out there, but there were individuals who did not truly love what they were doing. They were just doing it because they were ready to get out. You know, I only need 2 more years, or I only need to
there's a lot
stay.
of that
And
Do they get tenured at that level?
yes, you can get tenure as an administrator. I think it's like 4 or 5 years for the most part in one district. New Jersey has some weird laws regarding that, but you know, to be honest with you, the individual just it was time, and I don't think that person was specifically ready for new ideas. Because you know, when you're stuck on 30 years of doing something a certain way, when you get put into a different environment, it's culture shock.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And when you have a lot of pride, and I'm not describing myself, when you have a lot of pride and you go through culture shock, you don't fare well. You really don't. I say that because when you go through something new, you have to be willing to learn, and you have to kind of throw everything out in the past.
Absolutely.
You know. And be ready to learn some new tricks, because these young men and women who are coming up today, they're a lot shabbier than you think. Are they dealing with more? Probably.
Yeah.
Probably dealing with more on a spiritual, intellectual, and mental level.
When you say young people, you mean students?
High school age teenagers,
Yeah.
18
Oh,
to
my God.
25.
I could only
You know,
imagine. I would never want to grow up.
even at, we can go as low as middle school.
Yeah.
You know, because you're seeing that. I mean, you're
Well,
seeing.
let's face it, you know, we were so innocent as kids, at least John and I were, maybe you too as well, Jose. You know, we were so innocent. I mean, there was
It
no
was a completely different world.
there was no cable TV, there was no cell phones. I mean, what
No
you
social media.
There
no
was
social
that's the key, I
media.
think.
Yeah.
There was no social
yeah,
media.
and if you had a problem with a bully or somebody, or it was to your face. It
Yeah,
was
and if you
settled.
liked the girl, you had to pass the note.
That's right. You had to
I
talk.
was one of the last few to have that. You know,
Yeah.
like I remember that. It's like, yo, can you pass this to her?
Yeah.
But she's in the other class. It's just like, you know.
Yes.
Yeah, you had actually.
And we did it. We got it. It was like working. It was like at a jail. You only hear stories like that in jail. Like you're in B13 in the basement, and you have to get the message before lunch all the way to 416, the biology lab, where maybe Cynthia was there, and you wanted to talk to her. You just passed the note, and then you have people like.
I went with my sister one. I went with my
was intense.
sister one time to pick up my niece at a dance. Okay, now when a dance, you know, there's a lot of interaction. You're talking. If you had enough nerve to talk to, it was middle school, but they were outside. All the kids were outside, and they were all texting and talking on their phones. Like nobody's interacting.
Right.
I'm like, how sad is this?
Yeah.
I mean,
right.
God.
In other words, is interacting with someone that's 20 miles away more alluring to you than fucking talking? Oops.
There's one.
There's one.
We're gonna get a bell. We're gonna ring the bell every time.
Right? Is it more alluring than talking to the person that's 3 feet away from
But they
you?
probably were talking to the person 10 feet away. You know, like
Maybe,
Let me
maybe.
tell you, and I think the issue is that we've allowed young children within our family, young children, I like to say, to believe that it is their personal right, their personal right to use the phone whenever they want to. Also, you'll get a lot of kids who say, you can't touch my phone,
oh yeah.
to their parents.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah, right.
Oh.
Who
I
owns
can't
that
touch
phone?
what? I
Who owns
wish.
that phone? Hand it over. Right.
What are the rules for phones in schools?
Oh my God!
I
What
mean,
rules?
there are
There are no rules.
Wow.
No, honestly,
Oh my God.
we are having such a bad problem in inner city public schools with the phones.
Yeah.
We are encouraged as educators, and we also encourage each other to try to use the phone and implement it into what they do. But it's so difficult because what's happening is that the speed at which people are getting information today is so crazy and fast.
Not necessarily the right
Information, but it's
just
information.
information.
Where maybe you guys for sure probably had to go into a library, into
Oh,
a
yeah.
school,
You had to go into a
institutional library at the university and study and look up and get the little cards. And I remember being the last of the generation to do that. I was born in '85, but I remember my first cell phone was in college, freshman year in college. Some people, they had cell phones maybe junior year, but cell phones really started blowing up after 2003. If you think about it, it was like the big time cell phones. I mean, you talk about 2003 Razor. I believe that's when. Remember the Razor? Everybody's like, "Oh, you got a Razor?"
Right.
I remember people had I had a beeper. And that was because I stole it from my brother, but
Yeah.
I used his number. He didn't know.
So now it's their right. They can
Right.
come in with the phone at
Yeah,
any
you
time.
can't touch it
Are they
because
texting? I mean,
oh,
half
they're
the time-
texting. They're listen.
How about kids that can't wake up in the morning because they've been all freaking
Yeah.
night on the phone in their bed?
Well,
You know,
I think
and you
that's
see the glo- you
I
see
think
the
that's a
glory.
parental issue.
It is a parental
Because I
issue.
take my daughter's tablets at 9 o'clock at night. Every night they're gone.
Yeah.
And sometimes they go days without using them on purpose.
Yeah.
And I think that it is our job. You know what? Whatever they do when they get older, they're going to do. They're. I always tell my daughters, you're a victim of your choices, and you'll have them to choose.
Right.
But while you're under this house, I'm going to teach you something, and I'm going to sometimes force teach you something because this is our house, and as a family, this is how we're going to approach our life. And those conversations in those situations are not happening often in many households in the inner city, and not because there aren't good parents. There are amazing parents who, unfortunately, yes, they have to work a lot. My mom was one of them.
Right.
My mom worked in a factory sorting out recycling for 14 years,
Oy.
working second shift. It was terrible.
What was big with our generation was we were able, because of the times, we sat down to dinner with our family. Father, mother, brothers and sisters. There was no TV on. There was no cell phones. You were talking to each other. How was your day? You know, and if somebody was wrong, what's wrong with him? You know, my father would say to my mom, what's wrong with him?
Are you
know?
stupid?
Yeah, like what's going on here? Like, and you know, as a father,
Yeah.
we both know when your kids are off, you know it.
Oh, yeah.
And now that was it. I mean, I could only imagine if I had a cell phone. There'd be a meatball thrown at me or something.
No, I try to remove the cell phone from the table. And I'll be honest with you, growing up, there was no table talk. We didn't even have a table growing up in our house. I'm talking about me, my two brothers, and my mom. No table. It was the floor, a little chair on the corner because we always lived in a studio or we lived in
right.
a box. You know, I remember we had to stay for a couple months on top of a funeral home. And I'll tell you that growing up like that allowed me to kind of be resourceful in so many ways. But while the conversations weren't happening on a table, they were happening wherever they were needed to happen.
Okay.
And I think that's important. Now, as I started
That's
getting
the
older, I
bottom
became a
line.
parent.
Yeah.
I wanted that table talk. So I started doing it.
Yeah.
From the very young age of
Good.
1, my daughter began to sit at the table, me, my wife, and my daughter. And then it was me, my
Yeah.
wife, and my 2 daughters. Then now is our son. But we'd gather together. And it
Well,
became...
the whole
and,
concept of a table is, think about the Knights of the Round Table. It wasn't a square table.
Yeah.
It wasn't a rectangle. It was a
And-
round table.
And
Everybody had a
it
voice.
was at that point, literally, and it was at that point that I understood that there was an identity that you needed to form as a family, and this is where you have the identity of a culture,
Yeah.
and in our schools we don't have that. People are all over the place. Kids are all over the
Yeah.
place. It's not that they're doing different things, but they are lost. It's almost like
Yeah.
they're all around and they're like looking for the guide, but they don't know who. Because the only people they see, whether it be on their media, whether it be on the TV, on the news, are people that are lying to them, and they're not being honest to them.
Oh, that's for sure.
And that's the
Oh,
honest.
Lord.
That's the reality. A lot of teachers ask me, "How do you get these kids to listen to you? How do you get them to do what they're supposed to?" I said, "Being honest with them."
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because when you're honest with them, the results are consistent. They become consistent. You can never fail by being honest. Hey, you think you could do this for me? Nah, I don't think I can right now. If that's your honest speak, then you
That's
can't
it.
do it right
That is
now.
why.
Right.
And we need to be honest with these kids and let them know that, and to stop teaching this culture of victimization with them. Many of our kids come in and I ask them, so who's responsible? Oh, it's because the I was born, black. It's because I was born with this, and because look, I get it. It's a rat race. Life is a rat race. We are all going to start at some point. Some people start ahead of the pack. Some people start in the back. Sure. You guys remember that movie, that comedy movie? Well, I forget the name of there was a good set of actors in that movie, The Rat Race, with the comedians, with Mr. Bean, and oh my God, catch that movie. It's called Rat Race.
Okay.
But in the movie, you see these different individuals from many cultures, aspects of life. Some rich, some middle class. Then you have the poor guy, the one who bets and loses all his money. But they're all racing to get to this one locker, which apparently has $1 million.
Remember, it's a mad, mad, mad world. So it's along the same line.
Yes,
Our generation.
and so these kids don't understand that wherever you're born in the race, wherever section you're born into, you're going to have to run if you really want it. And as crappy as it sounds, yes, there are things that hold you back and things that, from a cultural perspective, you're going to have to deal with. But you keep complaining about it. You keep on whining about it. There's no change going to happen. I could have whined all my life.
Right. And
There's
the
no
other thing is,
change.
you said something. You took the garbage can off of a rat hole. The concept of honesty, right? Honesty. Think about how the public has been bullshitted, how we've been lied to, not just on the television, radio, through the music industry, Hollywood, all that crap, but. And I'm going to tell the viewers that I know this for a fact, that everybody likes to say, oh, the science is settled. No, it's not. And you've heard me say this before. The science isn't settled. I'm going to tell you why it's not settled. Because 100 years ago, was the science settled? And everybody thought it was? All banging their canes with their bow ties and their tails and their top hats. They thought it was settled. But it was 100 years ago. Okay, 50 years ago. Now you're going to say, oh, the science was settled. No. You know what? Science is never going to be settled. Not until we reach nirvana. Don't ask me when that's going to be. Maybe the science will be settled then, but between now and then, the science is never going to be settled. And how often are we misled? Oh my God, don't eat eggs. Eggs will put you in a casket. Oh, the cholesterol in eggs. Well, now we're finding out that eggs are almost the ultimate perfect food. That it's not really an issue of the cholesterol, or, oh, it's got to be low fat this or low fat that or low cholesterol this or that. But wait a minute, for me, it's carbs. You want to put me in a grave early? It's carbs. And just how bad is the carb issue? It's worse than you think, because everything that's made with plant items that make up the world of carbohydrates is fraught with pesticides and glyphosate, which causes cancer. We've been continually lied to keep us off balance, to keep us not really knowing which way is true north. We have been. So when you said honesty is a massive topic.
Yeah.
And you'll get consistency out of the kids in an educational setting if you're honest with them. And it translates right up to the bigger stage, which is worldwide. If people are dealt with honestly, everybody all of a sudden will coalesce, and will reach a oneness that certainly the world is devoid of for thousands and thousands of years. And the elite motherfuckers of the planet have kept us off balance and in the dark intentionally.
Yeah, that's what was my point. I was just going to say, John. Yeah, we're wanting honesty so bad. We're all looking for honest politicians, honest leaders, no matter where you turn. But they're purposely dishonest. I mean,
They're intentionally and purposely dishonest. What
news
you
channels.
say, that's true.
News
It's
channels
true. Yeah.
dishonest. No matter who you listen to.
I mean,
everybody puts their own slant on it. Go ahead.
No, and I think that's the true case, because everybody wants acceptance, and the sad part is that people are willing to lie for acceptance, and that and what's the old adage or the old expression of the rooster?
The rooster comes home to roost.
Yeah.
Roosters
When
are
the
coming
chickens
home
come
to
home
roost.
to roost.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
it's gonna happen. So those things are gonna catch up with you. I mean, I'm not telling you guys or our audience that out of just he doesn't know what he's talking about. I've been there. I've burned myself with lies. And I'm not speaking to you from no experience. I'm speaking to you because as a father, as a husband, as a teacher, as an educator, and as a friend, I've been there where I've hurt people with lies, and I've done my share of I think most of us can go back and recall something, but I think that my life has turned around since I've decided to be more honest and straightforward with the individuals I meet on a daily basis. And that means whether they like me or not. You know,
Look at honesty in the media. I mean, now we're going,
Oh.
but we're going through this January 6th committee.
Oh,
and there's a
Phil.
special witness
Yeah.
who testified that the ex-president, President 45, did this, did that. Now you hear from the media that there's Secret Service agents that will testify under oath
Against
that
that.
that's not even true.
Yeah.
So what game is being played?
Oh,
You're getting it from both directions.
Or the note she wrote.
Or the notes you're
Apparently she wrote a note. The person who wrote the note has come out and said she didn't write the note. She lied because I wrote the note.
Now what is going on?
gosh.
Now this is
It's the Amber Heard story of politics.
Yeah.
It really
I
is.
stayed away
isn't-
from that.
this is in Washington. Our capital, our nation's capital, with our supposed leaders, some of our leaders up there, and trying to grill somebody and tell a story that what is going on? I mean, they don't even want to hear the other side of the story. The other side of the story has never been presented in this committee hearing. It's only one version of what's going on,
That's
and you're
because
not allowed to
it's a
rebut.
democratic shit show fucking kangaroo court specifically produced by evil to co-opt the world.
Yeah.
To co-opt the goddamn planet. And you know something? People aren't going to buy it. The truth will come out. The truth will come out, and they will all stand with their thumbs up their asses.
I stopped buying their product about 2004, or late 2014. I mean, I grew up in a Democratic stronghold. I mean, I grew up in a house where if you weren't Democrat, you were crazy, because you couldn't relate to
That was a different
Republicans
party
and
back
all that.
then.
Yeah,
That
but
was a
even
different party.
it was. But I mean, I'm only 37, so you would think that the individuals who've been in power since the early 90s, the last Bush, Clinton, all those people, they're all, for the most part, we've had Democratic presidents run, and if not the family, we call them the family, the group of I don't want to say the name, but that era, I never paid attention to politics, I never paid attention. I was always about trying to survive. Now, had I known what I know today, everybody can use that line, everybody loves that line, I would have definitely switched my mindset so much earlier, because as you guys have told me, and many have told me, I'm an old soul. I learn from what I see. And growing up in democratic cities throughout the East Coast, in Puerto Rico, because Puerto Rico is completely democratic. I mean, they have a high percentage of I call it the welfare state. They don't produce a lot of taxes. They don't have a big tax base, and that's why they're going through what they're going through. But it's democratic. I lived in New York City. I lived in Willoughby Projects in Brooklyn for about 8 years. My father's from the Kings Plaza area. My wife is from the Bronx. I grew up, for the most part, in Jersey City, lived in Newark. I'm naming all these inner cities, and that's just a few. But all these cities what I began to understand was always run by Democrats. And it's not that they don't have good ideas. I think that the old school, like you mentioned, had some really wonderful ideas, and I don't disagree with them. But the reality is that in the last 30 years, I've not seen any change in my community.
How can people wake up to that? Because it just happens again and again and again. The same people get elected, whether they're Republican or Democrat, doesn't matter.
Nothing changes.
I think people are afraid of being uncomfortable. People are so, I'm going to tell you a story about my brother, and I love him to death. My brother has had a tough time holding a job his whole life. He does get some assistance for the government. He does struggle with some mental health issues, but for the most part, he's very efficient, works hard, bull of an animal, does construction, things like that. But he loves doing that at home and stuff. And I told him, I said, listen, you know what's holding you back, and that's you're so used to receiving that check at the end of the month that you're afraid
He doesn't have to step
what
up.
would happen if I step out and do this on my own.
Yeah, it's a big
But then
deal.
I tell him, I said, how long have you been in this service? He goes, 10 years I've been taking this. I said, what do you have to show for it? The government will give you money and maintain you, but they will never allow you to succeed.
No,
They don't
no,
want you to.
no.
That's why I truly believe in capitalism, because capitalism is beautiful when done correctly.
When done correctly.
When done
That's
correctly.
You're right.
You get what I'm saying? And I know
totally.
both aspects. People are like, well, you don't know I know, but the concept is beautiful. It's better than communism, socialism. But I think the issue here is that we're not being honest with our kids. We're not teaching them to be honest because we're not doing it ourselves. And I don't speak for everybody. I'm just speaking as a generalizing one specific situation that can be fixed. This is not to judge any teacher.
What's the root of the inability for people to kind of come clean and be honest? Is it because we find ourselves in a cancel culture, and God forbid you fess up and you unfold to people, and all of a sudden they're not comfortable with you, and they punish you by canceling you, or at least making you feel uncomfortable, like they're gonna cancel you. All of a sudden you're back into your shell.
At this point in our life, in this moment in time we're living in, and this is my personal opinion, the fact that if you are not being honest with yourself or the kids or the people you're servicing, whether it be patients, whether it be the clients who come into your business, or the service you're providing to an individual, in my case, the service I provide to the students, it's for one or two reasons. One, you really don't give a shit. Or two, you're connected economically or financially to it. There's no other way about it.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
you can be financially, economically connected to it and not like it for what it is, but that's because the system has put you into debt, and then you're forced to work in that area. You can't move, you can't do nothing because you're locked down to that.
Yeah.
The people who understand this will free themselves financially,
Sure.
at least have no debt so that they can move, right?
Yeah.
And then they start to understand, okay, I know how the game is played. And
well,
sadly, that's what's going on.
You should be a free thinker, and they don't want free thinkers.
They don't, not even in the classroom.
Everybody
There's that concept of free thinking again.
And they
God
will-
forbid.
And they won't tell you that directly.
No,
They
there's
won't
no
tell you
That's
that.
an honest conversation.
They will not tell you that directly because in the end, it's about numbers. It's about funding. It's about how many people can I have on their seat. Do you know what they told us recently? Any senior who has 30 absences for the year or less, but passed your class with a D or C, pass them. Or if they can pass, help them pass. Wink.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, do you know what the state allows for absences for the year, whether it be excused or non-excused? 18 absences.
Oh, wow.
So now you're asking me as an educator, I spent 180 days working with these students. Some of these students didn't do absolutely nothing. Not because they couldn't, because of sheer laziness, and I'm interested in other things.
Yeah.
But I had to pass them. Why? Because they lose the numbers. They lose the funding.
Right.
See, but you got to be willing as an administrator to get rid of it. You got to get rid of that type of energy.
I don't know. If
And that's difficult
but
because
that
they
issue-
tell you you cannot discriminate. But let me tell you, I've been in schools, 7th grade, 8th grade, teaching with kids with ankle bracelets. This is not their first rodeo. Okay? My question has always been, at what point does it become the responsibility of the parent and not the state?
Well, but the state wants, hey, look.
But they want it because, again, it's a revolving
I'm
system.
going to point to Hillary Clinton. Now I feel nauseated.
What?
You know, that book, and I never read that book. I have no intention. It takes a village to raise a child.
It does?
No, that
think so.
is the chute. That's the funnel. That's the hopper to the communazi world and the New World Order. You're saying that people are kind of stuck in this circle jerk where they can't get out, and they have to pass them through, otherwise they'll lose the funding. That's serving everybody except the kids themselves.
There you go.
It's serving the agenda to keep that population down.
Absolutely. I mean, think of what you're doing to that kid. You're not helping them whatsoever. You're actually hurting them because you're going to put them in a situation the next year that, guess what? They're going to be deeper in trouble. They're actually going to struggle even more. And what's going to happen when a kid struggles? He's going to forget it. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to go. I'm not going to do the work, and it's just going to cycle down from there.
Right.
And it's any administrator, any teacher now is really up against it. I'll tell you what, any honest one that wants to really help children. I don't know how many teachers are really there to help kids nowadays. I mean, are they just there for a paycheck?
I was referencing a book that one of my wife's sister's husband recommended to me back when I first met him in 2009, 2010. And he said, read this book. I believe the author Charlotte something. It's called The Deliberate Dumbing Down of America. And right now on Amazon, I believe it's like $300. I just looked it up.
That's because they don't want you.
They don't want you to read it.
Right.
And I tell people, read that book. You'll see what this person was talking about then that is happening now. And I hate to say that, to criticize my profession this way, because a lot of people say, well, you shouldn't be teaching politics in school, or you shouldn't be talking about these things in school. I don't know why we've made it so risque and so wrong to talk politics. I think the fact that the reason we're in the situation we're in is because not enough people understand the political game.
Yeah.
Because that's what they've made it. It was never supposed to be a game.
But how do you tell a bunch of grade school, grammar school, middle school kids that politics is just a veil for filth and disgust?
The same way you tell them that a girl can be a boy and a boy can be a girl. They indoctrinate it.
Okay.
Now,
Yeah.
the thing is, who gets to them first? Who gets to them first? Now, there are some really amazing teachers out there. I do not criticize the effort and the work that these educators and these leaders are doing, because let me tell you, some of them, they're going against their heart, but that's something they got to deal with. From an intellectual perspective, from a dignifying perspective, they have to deal with that. I always say that. You're gonna have to live with yourself, and I'm not, because I'm gonna do what I believe in my heart I would want someone to do for my kids. That's how I approach education. Because I have kids, and if my kids are in front of someone, I want them to be me, someone like me, or someone who has similar thoughts.
Or has a passion for the actual child. I mean, this is the problem. The adults are making the decision, and from the top administrator or whatever board of educations are up there, they're making it based, like what you said, on funding, on numbers. Will I keep my job?
But what are we
the
producing?
The last person on the list is the actual child.
You're producing.
What are we producing?
You're producing incapable, dependent people.
Yeah, weak here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where it is. A lot of these successes in our lives sometimes don't happen because of the obstruction here.
Right.
It's the
Right.
obstruction
Right.
here. How can I get that through the barrier that is my mind? And that's part of where the idea of trusting who you're getting your information, the consistency of the information that you're getting. People always ask me, how do you know someone's telling the truth? I said, well, look at the results.
Yeah.
Look at the results of their words and their actions.
Right.
And that in there lies the truth. All right. And I began to wake up from all this back in 2015 because I was going through some stuff with my wife. And I was tired. I was just like, it's always the same. There's no change. There's nothing different about my days and the days that I'm walking around and looking at things. It just seems monotonous and just
Welcome to
flat.
the world. I mean, come on.
So I happened to
Welcome
turn
to
on
the man's world.
and I remember my brother who only finished high school. My brother always, this guy Tom McCain is a traitor, blah 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 blah, and I'm like, what the hell is my brother talking about? My brother's like, he's everything you would describe as a Democrat. I mean, he loves his government funding, blah 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 blah. But I always saw him vote against the party, against the Democrats who were the party who were giving them services, and I'm like, what's going on here? What does he know that I don't know? Instead of me going, are you crazy, and following the mainstream, I said,
This is before you swallowed the red pill?
Yep. In 2000,
You said that.
yep. And then in 2016, I'm walking into the booth, and I literally stand there and I go, God, I don't know what I'm doing right now. I never have when I step into these things. but I'm about to vote for Donald Trump because I've never felt so interested and sure about someone. Now,
A non-politician.
non-politician.
Right.
And I said, you know what? Before he made these words on national radio, what do you have to lose?
Yeah.
I always tell the people in the street who are living in the situation that I grew up in, I look at them without telling them, and they don't know my situation. Some people that I talk to think that I'm well off and that, oh my God, you're so learned and you're so, educated. I had it easy. I'm like, do you guys know that to get the little things that I have right now, I had to almost work 5 times harder? Not because I had to work 5 times harder because you were born with a spoon in your mouth. I could care less. Honestly, that's the last thing. But I had to work 5 times harder because I was in the back of the pack, whether I liked it or not. And my mom was always honest with me, and my mom always kept it real. If there was going to be a struggle, she'd say,
Why do you think you were in the back of the pack?
because for a long time, things were materialistic to me. I think that's what most children are. It's not until they start connecting and they need that. And sometimes you need that guidance to connect you. And growing up without my dad, the first 13, 14 years of my life was difficult because I didn't have the insight of a man.
Yeah.
And most men that came by my life, I didn't relate to. There was no connection. My mom barely had any boyfriends. I don't know why. She should have, but now I understand why as she tells me the stories, but I didn't have that guidance. When I was 14, I met a gentleman by the name of Herman Sanford. He became my coach, my baseball coach for the first time in the AAU, the Jersey City Vipers. And he became my dad, my dad in God, and I accepted that, because I stole from him. I stole money from him. I lied to him, and he caught me through all of it. And I didn't steal from him because I wanted to hurt him. I just didn't know. I wanted a reaction. Because,
That's interesting. I wanted a reaction.
I wanted someone to scold me and teach me something about something. You know what I mean?
Is love.
And so it was easy to go and do whatever I want, but I didn't want to. I wanted to learn, and I wanted to get someone to teach me the ropes because my mom did a wonderful job. But I'm sorry, there's just things that you can only learn from your mom and things you can only learn from your dad. I'm truly believing in that, But
I've always said, Jose, the struggle is a gift.
absolutely.
And until you've been in the struggle and you've come out of that struggle, me and John have discussed this on prior podcasts. Until you've been in there and you survived it, you definitely come out better than when you went in.
Yeah.
The struggle is a gift. And you've had a struggle since the very beginning.
Yeah, and that's okay. And I don't like to brag about that because I would never want anybody.
You don't have to let us brag about it.
There's a reason why I am the way I am with my kids is because, you know what? They don't have to struggle like I did, but they can have the same lessons now in other ways. Yeah. But I have to find a way to teach them those things because they're not going to experience them. Some people are like, well, I survived it. It's okay. Right. Just because you survived it doesn't mean your kids will be ready to survive it. You know what I mean?
Well, you know what strikes me about you? Sorry, I'm not close enough to the microphone.
No, you're good.
The thing that amazes me about you, Jose, is that the environment you grew up in has been duplicated all over the United States.
Oh, yeah.
It's L.A., it's Chicago, it's Detroit, it's New York, it's Trenton, New Jersey, it's all through, the Southeast, the Southwest.
Yeah.
But so many people, I think, are not free thinkers. And they're just in that pool, so to speak, bopping around like a cork in a pool. And unless you become a free thinker and see what a trap it can be, right? I mean, when's the last time you've actually driven through either Chicago or Detroit?
I've never been.
Okay, I would say don't. In spite of what Mayor
Lori Lightfoot
would say, my God,
Beetlejuice, we call it.
Well, I know, but I flew up to that area to interview years ago for my pediatric surgical spot and had to rent a car, and I got so lost This was way before GPS, and I got lost in Detroit. And I was saying the Hail Mary because it looked like, if you've ever seen the beginning of the movie Terminator, where it's
With all
nothing
the
but-
old clothes factories and things.
No, it's rubble. It's piles of concrete and cinder blocks and
Like a bomb
broken
hit it.
window. It's like a bomb hit it, and there's smoke and there's fires over here. And I was like, holy smokes! And I just don't understand if these cities that are so decimated are being controlled by the same people with the same mentality, year in and year out, decade in and decade out, for 75, 80, 100 years, 120 years.
Why do we keep voting for them?
How is it that people can't understand? Get out of that pot, people. Get out of that pot and crawl across the floor to another place, to another pot, or change the pot you're in.
Yeah.
Change the leaders, because the leaders are not going to help
Yeah.
you. You are in a lose-lose situation, but you don't
Yeah.
seem to understand it, which is where the free thinking comes in. It just does,
Yeah.
and it's very,
And
it's so disturbing.
It's the ingestation of lies. They ingest these lies that they're told every single day. You know,
Because it's easy.
growing up, I wouldn't be surprised if one of my reasons to play sports is because that's what I was told I could be good at. You know, little did they know that I wanted to be a pilot. You know, I wanted to fix engines or fly one. You know, that was literally, it's till this day my dream. And I remember applying to Dowd College of Aeronautics in Long Island, and I got accepted. It became an issue with financing. I couldn't go because I just didn't have the family to finance
Jesus.
it. You know what I mean? And so I stepped back and I said, then just stay close to home. You know, again, I chose William Patterson for baseball, but academically, I didn't want to go there. I wanted to go to Dowd College, and I was going to play ball there. I was going to do everything, but I couldn't get the money to get out of there safely. Now, again, had I known that I was going to work this hard to get where I got to today, I think I would have done it anyway. But I didn't know that. I didn't have that self-confidence in me. I didn't have that person to boost me at that point and go, just take a chance, because you got to invest in yourself to make yourself, and me not allowing myself to ingest the lies, of the culture I was living and growing up in. I always believed there was better,
Right.
And they talk about the American dream. They talk this concept of the American dream, and they'll tell you, the white patriarchal male, dream. I'm like, no, it's my dream. Right. I want to own a house. I want to have a family. I didn't have one growing up.
Free of the fucking central.
You know it, but
scumbags.
most importantly, I wanted a family.
Yeah.
See, many of our kids, they don't even know what that is right now.
Right.
And I'm not talking about that it needs to be a mom and a dad. That's ideally you would want that, right?
Yeah.
We all want that. But
Oh,
family is anybody. I think most of us could say
up how
that
you
that's
grew
my
up.
brother. We grew up together, even though they're just friends. But I understand that that's family too. When I talk about the concept of family, is the concept of a group of individuals who solely care about themselves in such unique ways, that they help each other to build each other, to strengthen each other's goals and dreams. We've been accustomed the last few decades to a culture of competition, and it ain't internal. You're competing against external forces. Sometimes these forces have more money than you, and their mission is different from yours. You know what I'm saying? Sure. Their mission is to make and drain you, make money off you, drain you, and throw you to the side, and then the next birth.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so they don't want that concept of unity together. A few days ago, I was listening to one of you guys' podcasts, and you mentioned Malcolm X. I recently taught Malcolm X at school, I think last month. I teach Malcolm X during Black History Month all the time, even though I think Black history should be relegated through all year, because without Black history, there's no American history. And I tell people that all the time. The fact that they hone it down to 1 month says a lot,
Good point.
because there's Black, Latino achievements all across the board throughout history that have led to the creation of this amazing country. And
This is a big melting pot.
and again,
Yeah.
it's what are we being taught? What are they telling our kids? What are they telling us? you know. And if we don't put up big people pants, and it's very hard being uncomfortable, you know. The other day, I'm driving out. I'm using my brother's car. My brother got the Trump flag flying up, you know. And I'm not usually. I don't know if you noticed. I drive around Jersey City with my brother's car and with a Trump flag. At first, I started getting like, bleh, you know. I had a guy go, you know, curse me out, do all these things, right? And I go, God loves you too. I said, but look around you. Tell me I'm wrong. And he just kept going with his guy. He was like. Yeah. You know, put his head down. And then I got a guy, I'm driving out the driveway in school. He goes, dude, you got guts. I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, you drive around with that? I was like, yeah, what's wrong with it? Well, you know, they don't say nothing. I said, what are you going to say? I'm free.
Yeah.
So what are you going to say? I said, what are you going to say? I said, listen, I told him, be courageous, right? Be valiant, because courage is contagious.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that the majority right now,
and fear.
yeah, the majority right now is afraid to speak, and that's why I appreciate guys like you guys who actually fluently speak honest truth based on your own personal experience and sharing that with the world, and that's important because we've forgotten the old tale of, you know, experience and listening to the old grandpa or older story. That's boring. That's not. No, but there are lessons to be learned.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, there are lessons to be learned, and if we're honest with our kids from day one, if we're honest with our students in front of us, if you weren't honest with your med students who were coming day in day out with you, what would happen? You know, and we can't allow money. Sadly, we can't allow money to become the reason that we become liars and dishonest individuals, you know?
Spot on. What a great way to end the podcast. John, if you had to alchemize this podcast.
Well,
I love this podcast.
No, this
amazing.
is a great conversation, and although there's nothing per se dark about it, we touched upon one of my favorite topics, which is honesty and free thinking. And I would say, dear Lord, please shed the light upon the masses, Lord. Shed your light. Allow people who are not free thinkers to open their eyes and become free thinkers. Open their ears, become free listeners and free thinkers. And let honesty ring true. And this way we will gently nudge humanity closer to God's river of love and light, as opposed to the darkness that surrounds us now. Amen.
Amen.
What a great job.
Thank you, gentlemen, again.
You bet. Listen,
it's always a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure. Okay. Hope you come back soon.
Absolutely. And I'll be listening out and enjoying and commenting on those amazing stories you guys share. And, you know, I look forward to seeing you guys get bigger audiences, because they deserve to hear people like you guys,
Well said.
honestly.
Thank you so
God
much.
bless, brother.
It's been
I
an
appreciate
honor.
it.
It's been an
Well,
honor, my friend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's always a pleasure. That's that pitcher's hand.
Wow.
30-something-year-old grip.
Yeah. Thank you guys for watching us on
You
the
got
Jersey Alchemist. If you like what we're doing, press like and follow.
And subscribe.
And share.
And share.
Till next time. Peace.
Later.
Now what do I do? Get that on.